What's up, everyone? Welcome to a very special Old Head anniversary celebration video. Not my anniversary, but an anniversary that is very important to me and to this channel. If this isn't your first time watching one of my videos, you probably already know that Metallica is my favorite band of all time and has been a very important band in my life for over 30 years. But today, July 25th, 2023, is the 40th anniversary of the album that started it all. So if you'd be so kind as to give me a few minutes of your time, let's talk about Kill 'Em All. Now, if you're a fan, you probably already know the story, but in case you don't, here's the Cliff Notes version. In 1982, Metallica put out the demo cassette No Life Till Leather that was widely tape traded and distributed, and they had a really big buzz going about them in the metal community. And that buzz carried their demo all the way over to New York City into the hands of one John Zazula. And Zazula liked it so much, he talked the band into signing with his pretty much brand new record label called Megaforce Records that he and his wife Marsha ran. The band then picked up and headed to New York, and at this point, Dave Mustaine was the lead guitar player of Metallica. But I'm assuming whatever happened on that van ride to New York was the final straw for Mr. Mustaine, and shortly after getting to New York City, they fired Dave Mustaine. And very quickly they recruited Kirk Hammett from another thrash metal band called Exodus. And Kirk Hammett had basically a month to learn all of the songs and Dave Mustaine's solos and try to somehow make them his own. But while Metallica was already a relatively young band, only being together for about 2 years, this version of the band that was going to record Kill 'Em All was going to be basically a month old. Now, Johnny Zazula was so confident in this band that he ended up giving him a $15,000 recording budget, which is pretty much all the money he had. So a lot was riding on this particular album. And from May 10th to May 27th, 1983, the band hammered away at Music America Studios in Rochester, New York, with producer Paul Curcio. And they came out of the studio with an album that, at this point, we all know is an absolute fucking classic. 10 history-making tracks, including one amazing bass solo from Mr. Cliff Burton. 2 songs, Hit the Lights and Motor Breath, originated from James Hetfield's previous band, Leather Charm. And as he very much likes to point out in interviews even today, 4 of the tracks, The Four Horsemen, Jump in the Fire, Phantom Lord, and Metal Militia, were co-written by Dave Mustaine. Now, the band had originally wanted to call the album Metal Up Your Ass, but thankfully, clearer heads prevailed, and they decided to go with the name Kill 'Em All, which apparently stemmed from a conversation they were having about record executives not liking the title Metal Up Your Ass, leading Cliff Burton to say, well, just kill 'em all. Of course, eventually the band would use Metal Up Your Ass in a more appropriate place on a kick-ass t-shirt. But at this point, I think it's important to note, and with as much hindsight as we have now, it's easy to forget that this was a brand new band. This was their first album. James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich were 19 years old. Kirk Hammett was 20 years old, and Cliff Burton was 21 years old. Really young dudes who had no idea that they would eventually be spoken of as a band that kickstarted an entire subgenre. All they knew is that they went into the studio, made the album they wanted to make, and now they were getting ready to go out and support it, which is something that they've been doing for 40 years. They would also release 2 singles from the album. On August 8th, 1983, they would release the single for Whiplash. On side A, it has Jump in the Fire and Whiplash Special Neck Brace Edition, which is just a slightly different mix of the song. And then on side 2, we've got Seek and Destroy and Phantom Lord. Both seem like they maybe were just recorded live in the studio, and then they added fake crowd noise on after the fact. I guess. That one was released in the US on Megaforce Records, and then on January 20th, 1984, this single, the Jump in the Fire single, was released, which has pretty much the same shit as Jump in the Fire. Doesn't have the Whiplash Neck Brace Edition, but it's got the same 2 quote-unquote live tracks on the B-side, and the same pictures. Now, to put my own personal stamp on it, I didn't hear this album until probably late 1991, maybe, and that's because I didn't really become a big Metallica fan until the Black Album came out. I had heard one, and I knew Injustice for All, but the Black Album, for me, like many other people, is the one that really kicked the door open for me, and I ended up going backwards through their catalog. And I would have to say, when I got to Kill 'Em All, I think this would be the one that fully solidified them as my favorite band. Because even back then, as a 13-year-old kid, I really appreciated the trajectory of the band and the progression that their sound had made over all of these 5 albums. But the fact that they started off with this album that even today just sounds like a fucking revolutionary album to me. And yeah, I know the idea of them being the fathers of thrash metal is arguable at best, but you can't deny the fact that the album had a huge impact, and a lot of bands probably would never have played thrash metal if it wasn't for Kill 'Em All. Because really all they were doing at the time was kind of a cross between new wave of British heavy metal and punk music that they both really enjoyed, and a lot of people were using the term speed metal. I don't think the term thrash metal was even used until after this album had already come out. But really, a band coming out and boasting, "We invented thrash metal," is not quite as cool as, "Hey, you invented thrash metal." We did? But whether you're a fan like me that came on board in the early 90s, or you were there when this album came out, or if you're just getting into the band now, you probably can't deny that this is an amazing debut album. And it set the stage for what has become the biggest metal band in the world, and my favorite band of all time. Now this version right here is the Walmart Blackened Records colored vinyl version, but it's pretty faithful to the original, even down to the track listing. But there's a later pressing, this one from 1988, that actually includes the cover songs Am I Evil and Blitzkrieg. And I think for some of us, probably around my age, this is the version that we first heard. But both of those cover songs were recorded after Kill 'Em All. Also, it's important to note that a lot of bands out there that you love, if you go all the way back to their very first album and then you go see them live, usually you're hard-pressed to hear them play a song from their first album. But they've been playing songs off Kill 'Em All for their entire career. Seek and Destroy has been played over 1,600 times, in comparison to Metal Militia that's only been played 90 times. But still, that's the power of Kill 'Em All, because the fans still want to hear these songs and the band still doesn't mind playing these songs. And it's probably a bit of a nostalgia trip too, because who would have thought that these ugly motherfuckers right here would become the biggest metal band in the world? One of the biggest bands in the world, period. All right, I've babbled long enough and I've kept you here much longer than I should have. So happy 40th anniversary to Kill 'Em All, from a band that even today, they're still putting out records that I love, and I'm still looking forward to seeing them in concert in just about a month. My wife and I will be at the 2 shows in Arlington, Texas, that will also be broadcast in cinemas throughout the world. Those are theaters for people in America. So look out for me. Maybe they'll zoom way into the nosebleeds and you'll see my little old head hat. All right, that's it. Thank you very much for joining me for this mini celebration, and I will see you all again very soon.